Welcome to Boots Off, Log On, a podcast where we talk all things farm business. A show about the business of farming, bringing you insights and wisdom from the leaders in farm business, helping you minimise risk and maximise return on all your hard work. I'm David, and I'll be your host for the show.
Today I'm sitting down with Jill Fotheringhame in her kitchen at the start of harvest 2022. Jill owns and manages a beef feedlot and grain enterprise with her husband Keith and son Todd in Karlgarin, Western Australia. Jill loves farming and says she was very lucky to marry a farmer. We talk about how Jill and Keith grew their farm from a small sheep and wheat farm in the late 1980s to the large, successful cattle feedlotting and grain business today. We discuss managing high interest rates, the changes in farm technology, autosteer phone calls from brothers, practical farm financial management habits and routines that have helped Jill over the years. We discuss succession and allowing the next generation to run the show. Jill believes that good family relationships are the cornerstones to successful farm business and believes it's about relationships, communication, and involvement. Jill is a lovely and hard-working person who generously gave up her day to show us around her amazing farm and to record this podcast for you. So sit back wherever you're listening and enjoy Jill's story and her wisdom. Now over to Jill.
Welcome to the podcast, Jill.
Thank you.
Now, I just got to tell everyone, we're out at, now, technically Karlgarin. Karlgarin. So for those of you not from Western Australia, it doesn't end with an ing or an up. It's an
End with an I and an N.
An I and an N.
And it's about 320 kilometres northeast of Perth on the way to Wave Rock, Hyden, or on the way to Esperance.
So even people from outside of the state probably know this area because of Wave Rock?
Definitely. If you say you come from Karlgarin or Hyden, they say, where's that? And you say, well, do you know Wave Rock? And they say, yes. And we say, well, we're not far from there.
Yeah.
And it's in the wheat belt, or the Great Southern.
Yeah, and we're making this recording right at the start of harvest. So how many days are you into harvest now?
Oh, not very much. We have been probably going for 2 weeks, but the rain event, we've been having rain events every week. Could be 5 meals that stopped us for 3 or 4 days and then start again. So this week's been really good. We started on Sunday afternoon and we've had nearly a good week of harvesting, which is very, very good.
Yeah, it is good. You haven't had a bit of rain yesterday, is that right?
A little bit last night. There's been a lot of thunderstorms because when it comes in warm, it creates a storm. So if you're under the cloud, you get a little bit of rain. If not, you're right. Last Friday, we had a hail event in the district, which is really disappointing.
Yeah. So do you know if you've had any of your properties affected at all yet?
Yeah. Yes, our properties did, especially down at Pingaring. Did, and I was with the assessor yesterday.
Oh. Yeah, it's never uneventful, isn't it, farming? You know, we were talking about 4 over lunch, weren't we? There's always something. There's no such thing as a average year, is there? People talk about average years. There's no such thing as it.
No, it might more the perfect season. That's what you'd like, the perfect season. It's always too cold, or it's rained too much, or you get frost, or you get hail. It's very rare you have the perfect season, but the yields are really increasing over the years. We've got some very good young farmers in this district, and I think in WA we've got some very good innovative farmers, and the yields are really going up high to when we first started. They're just unbelievable. Yeah,
we're just talking about around the state. You know, obviously at the time of recording, we've had this historical large rise in land prices around the state, but at the same time, like you said, there's the rise in the improvement in agronomy and technology and seeding and everything. So the reliability of high yields now is something that we, even 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have expected, do you think?
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. And like you've hit the nail on the head. It's the agronomy, its technology is unbelievable. You know, when we first started, you know, you had to drive a header and take note and lift the header, it comb up and down. Now it's automatic, and when it gets to the end, it can turn itself around, and that's with the seating equipment, and it's auto steer up and back, so it's more efficient. It's just technology. You just wonder in the next 20 years where technology is going to go. But it's really good, and it's good that the young people have embraced it, and we've got some good people that are inventing all this.
Yeah, definitely. I always can tell that I always know when I get a call from my brother, he must be spraying or harvesting or on the tractor because it all steers itself now. Got time for a chat.
Yeah. Well, I get the same call from my brother. When he's on the sprayer or the header, he rings me and says, "What's happening in that?" And I'm thinking, you must be spraying or seeding or harvesting because it's all auto steer.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, Jill, how long have you been farming? So tell us, let's go back and talk about your farming journey. When did you start your farming journey?
In 1980, I married Keith.
Yeah.
And moved out here. And he was with his mother and father and his brother farming on this farm here.
Yeah.
And then it was I was brought up on a farm up near Kadoo or Manning, and went to boarding school, and then had a life of working in Perth in the commercial banks, and then I was really pleased to marry a farmer. Because I think it's really good and brought up 2 children, but farming's just absolutely just wonderful.
When you ended up, you went from Kadoo, then down to the boarding school, then into the bank. When you were in the bank, were you hoping to end up back in the country at some point?
It never crossed my mind, but when Keith came along, we just clicked, and we were really happy I was really happy to marry a farmer, but coming from Kadoo. And then coming out to Karlgarin, I thought it was a never-ending journey. It's so much longer. How far can you live out here? My mum and dad were horrified. You're going to live out there. It's so far, but you just get used to it.
Yeah. So where was the closest? How far to Perth from Kadoo was it?
Oh, it's only just on 2 hours.
Oh yeah. So local in West Australian terms.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So then we got married, and then in 88 or 87 or 88 really, the farm got financially into trouble. Mm-hmm. So there was a mediator involved, and we were offered to buy the large part of the farm, and but we had no money, and so my mum and dad, my brother's older than me, and he was farming up there, were very, very good to us, and we always got on as a family, and so they offered to pay the deposit that we needed, so we could continue farming, Keith and I. So then after that, we continued farming, and we'd have paid the deposit back quite quickly, and that's where our journey started, is farming together, and it's been the best decision out. It's been absolutely a wonderful decision.
And that's the thing. We're sitting here now. We've been touring around the operation this morning, and you've got we'll get into it, but you've got a really successful operation here, and you've got your son in here. Who's going gangbusters with the feedlotting and stuff. But right back then, when you were getting someone to help you out with a deposit and, just getting started, have you imagined walking around like we did today and all that you and Keith have achieved in that time?
No, definitely not. We had it tough, and Keith had to go off farm to bring the money in, and we were very fortunate that he got a phone call to go out to Forrestonia with the bulldozer and work out there. So he'd be on and off going out there, working hard, and to his credit, it was a shame, but we just had to do it. He didn't see the children go to any sports carnivals. Didn't have much to do with the children. When he got home, he had to work, and so did I. So that's a shame, but you just move on. We never went on holidays because we couldn't afford it. But if we didn't go off farm, we wouldn't have kept this farm.
Yeah, and what have you had at the time? There was some tough years there, and I think it was the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, where everything was a bit tough. Wool was tough, grain was tough, and you would have had a number of farmers, that you knew would be going through very similar sort of circumstances you were at the time?
We probably didn't really discuss finances with other people, but, it was 88 was when we first started, and we did a budget like everyone else has to do a budget. And during that year, we got was 18% interest rate, and then for every reason, because we really didn't know what was happening with the prices, that we went over our budget and went to 24%. So that was tough. But we got over. But we had a good season. We were very fortunate that year was very, very good. But the wool tax, the next year we ran sheep and just a few cattle. And then the wool tax went up and we got hit with that. We had 30 extra bales of wool, but it all went in wool tax.
Yeah.
But you just got to move on.
And this goes to the point of financial management. So, since you essentially started running the farm with Keith, and so 88 was really the big kick-off date, do you think, for you and Keith as farmers together?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So since that time, have you always been you came from the bank, did you do the books? Have you always been the driver of the finances, like doing the books and everything?
I've always done the books, and I did it in, I don't know if you remember, your dad would start, before he started computers, the long, cash books, and you used to write it down and every month put it in and send it to the accountant. Never shoebox, but it was in, it was already done. It was already written out for the accountant. And then computers came along and AgriMaster came along, and AgriMaster is the best thing. I'm sorry. I know that you're the principal of it, but it's just so easy. I can't praise AgriMaster enough.
So you went from that journey. So you did books the long way on a journal.
Yes.
You would have a pencil and a rubber and lots of calculator.
And a checkbook, and now I wouldn't even know what a checkbook was. You just don't even use a checkbook.
Yeah.
But a pencil and a rubber and the big book with journals and everything, yes.
But that would have given you a good grounding. Yes. So I always say to clients when they talk about, software, and a software is just an automated tool. It doesn't do anything particularly clever that you can't do with a pencil and paper, especially with accounting. And obviously it does it quicker and easier, and you can repeat it a lot. But the core capability that you had, this ability to keep a journal or some books in your ledger, would have given you good foundations. So when you went to computing, it was just easier?
Oh, yeah, a lot easier. You saved time. You didn't have to write, the check number down, the date down, and who it was from, because it's automatically in the AgriMaster. Yeah. So, no, a lot easier. And it has involved a lot with bookwork, but you just keep on top of it, and I enjoy it, but it does take a time, but I feel that you've got to stay on top of it. And
that's a good point. Bookkeeping does take time. Yeah. So, but you are mentioning that, yes, it takes time, but I enjoy it. Is it the process, or is it the feeling you get of knowing where you're at? So what sense of satisfaction does keeping the books up to date for you give?
Is knowing our financial position.
Yeah. Definitely
knowing it from, I could tell you weekly our financial position, where we're at. And often I would say if Todd is our son, if he wants to buy something, he'll come and say, Mum, what's our finance position? What do we have to do? How much money's coming in this week? How much money? What have we got to do here, there? And I'll do a bit of a budget for him, and I'll know what I think and, where our finances are.
So the way you use budgeting strategically, and like you said, he wants to come in and he wants to buy a bit of equipment or do an expansion of some sort, and you say you'll run up a budget. Do you use budgets both tactically and strategically like that? So you use them obviously for your bank once a year or whatever, but when you want to make a change in the business, do you start with a cash flow or
So I just do a pencil and paper. I know my financial position, what our outgoings are for the next month if he wants to, or what our incomings are for the next month, and I'll just do it on a bit of paper.
Yeah, and that's just to make sure you're making the decision based on so what are you working out there? So the cash flow for that decision?
Mainly the cash flow, and then if we want a chattel mortgage, how much we've got on chattel mortgage already, when those payments are coming out, when are they going to be finished, those sort of things we talk about as well.
So what do you think the big change is? Since when you started with Ledger, apart from the change in computing, has there been other big major changes in the way you run finances or the requirements for you to the changes you've done in your bookkeeping?
Definitely. We didn't have the position to borrow much money. So, and I can never remember really leasing equipment. We paid for it if we could pay, if we didn't buy it unless we paid for it or could afford to pay for it. So there's more leasing now or, chattel mortgaging. So that's definitely a benefit for your business. Probably that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Because you already had a rhythm with your bookkeeping going into things like big changes like GST, for example, was the first big change. Did you find that a big interruption, or it was just, because you already had a bookkeeping habit going into GST?
I find, David, with Wage Master as well, with
single touch pay
rise wage, and GST, being the older person that doing the bookwork, I find change very hard. When I went to school, there was no computers, there was no calculators. But once I've got my head around it and I take my time, and I if I'm not sure, I'd rather go to AgriMaster and get a lesson on it and pay for it. I'm right. I can get my head around it. I'm right. So yes and no to your answer. I find it very hard for change because I'm the older person that wasn't brought up with computers. But once I've got my head around it, I'm right.
And is that for other people who, there'd be a lot of people in exactly the same situation with you, regardless of age. Some people just have this affinity with things and some people don't, whether that be accounting or computers or whatever. Was that something you would recommend to something? Like if you had someone else come into the business or another farm business to just invest in the training all the time? Definitely invest in the training.
Hopefully my daughter-in-law will take over soon, but I'm going to recommend that they go to a training course, to AgriMaster and get the training.
And that's because, do you see many people struggle who don't go through that process, who are trying to be self-taught or?
I don't know. I don't see anyone because I don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's an interesting thing in farming, isn't it? Like, I think you'll be able to talk about crops and yields and nutrition and cattle and sheep until the sun goes down, won't you? But money's just one thing that's never talked in ag, is it?
That's correct. Very much so.
Now, going from interest rates, so we're talking about the moment. So at the moment in Australia, there's a lot of farmers, who we've had a run of some decent seasons, especially in the West, and the East have had 10 years of drought and they've had some good ones. But interest rates have been historically low. So there's been a lot of people buying stuff, land, machinery, etc. Now they're starting to rise. Now we're thinking 2-3% is horrific.
Nothing on 18% when you're buying a farm, and then you go to 24. But the prices of purchasing land and equipment is just blown out. So that's probably why at 18% and 24, it didn't cost us that much. And now the values are a lot higher. Wages are a lot higher.
So you got Todd's generation now who are farming, and they've never experienced 18% or 24% interest rates. And they probably haven't experienced 2 or 3% interest rates yet as a generation. So what advice do you have? So you and Keith had the stress of high interest rates, regardless of your financial position at the time. So what advice have you got for the generation now who, have got good farms, they know what they're doing, they're good at what they do, whether it be livestock or grain, but this is the first time they're seeing their cost of finance going up and up and up on all their high purchases and all their machinery. Have you got any methods that you use in particular to manage the business financially through those sort of times when it gets tight on interest?
No, I haven't, and I wouldn't have advice for them. I think they've got consultants or something, or bank managers that would help them to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just accepted, and they would have their finances under control.
And saying that, keeping their finances under control, so that if things are getting tight, just keep your finances under control. So you're saying your financial position weekly.
Virtually, yes.
Is that something you'd recommend to both Todd?
Oh, weekly or monthly.
Or weekly or monthly.
Yeah, monthly. You've got to. I reconcile end of the month, so you know what you're doing, and what's coming in the following month if you want to buy something. But I think most people today and younger ones are very good at that sort of business, I think.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the evolution of your business. So you started off with grain. Was it a grain and livestock property when you first started in 88?
Yes, we inherited, I think, 10 cows and I don't know how many sheep, might have been 800 on our farm and the grain and got a little bit of machinery.
Yeah.
So then we were approached. Keith always liked his cows and I've always liked sheep. So our business, a sheep grew. We didn't have enough land to breed our own ewes, so we'd go out and buy other ewes, older ewes, and mate them to Pole Dorsets or meat rams, and the sheep. The cattle, we had a few cattle and didn't know much about it, but then there was a butcher shop at Hyden, Chick Haslam and his two boys had abattoirs out there, so they approached us and asked if we could give them a consistent supply weekly, and it was really 4 to 5 cows or 12 to 15 lambs every week. They used to come out and purchase them so they could slaughter for their butcher shop.
Yeah.
So then we had to make sure that we had enough cattle on hand, so we bought a few the extra cows, and then Keith would go to Katanning to buy fat lambs, and we bought extra fat lambs, and we used to trade them back to Wamco, so we did quite a bit of lambs. So we always had stock on hand. So we're going really well. We liked that. And then Todd decided to come home in 2003. He went to boarding school in Perth, and then he did 2 years of fine furniture at Twiningup and said he wanted to come home. And then he just loved his cows. So then we got more cows and started a feedlot. And then the sheep had to go because there wasn't enough room for the cows.
And so we've just been out to the feedlot this morning, and it's a beautiful big feedlot. And I think we're talking about now that the grain enterprise of the business almost now supports the feedlot now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. We've since we've bought we've had this farm since Todd's come home. We've purchased another couple of farms, and then now we can produce our own grain for the cattle feedlot.
Yes.
So that means more storage, more hay. So it's grown. Our business has grown, but Todd has really driven it, and now he's got a wife and 2 little children. It's just wonderful being in this relationship.
And so succession. Let's do a segue to that. So it's obviously been quite successful. Like Todd wasn't going to be a farmer. He's going to be a cabinet maker, I assume. And now he's come home to the farm, but it seems to be thriving. He's going gangbusters with the feedlot, and there seems to be like a new silo a day growing out there, like mushrooms. So that's worked well. Todd coming back into the business, and
definitely he has driven the business. We support him 100%, but we talk as a family together. And make decisions together, but he drives it, and Keith and I step back and we support him. He's the future, not us. And he said to us the other day that he was really pleased that we were custodians of the land, and so to give him the opportunity to buy land for himself and to grow this business, or for us as a family. And then he said, I'm the custodian for my 2 little boys. And I think that's just a wonderful story.
And does that make, because in agriculture, I think anyone listening to this on farm knows succession's not always that pleasant in farming. And so is there a trick to this? I mean, you talk about talking to it as a business. Have you always talked with Todd about the business the whole time he's been here and involved him in the business?
Yeah, always. Yeah, we've always talked. Yeah. No one goes off and buys a bit of machinery without talking about the other one and talk about finances. We talk together. Todd runs the show, and so he should do. Not should do, but we allow him to do, because he's the future. We're the older farmers, but we support him and we still work behind him. If he wants us to do something, we do it. But he drives it, and I think more I shouldn't say more farmers, but the next generations, that's their future. We had our future. We want to pass it on. I think it just works so well, David. It really does.
And so, as the current, I suppose the generation handing it on, is there a staged approach to this? So, in other words, there's always this trouble of letting go of one generation and the other one coming on because they're younger and they've got all this. Todd wanted to grow the feedlot and do other things. Is there a slowly letting go process, or is it just a leap of faith in succession? How do you?
I think both. I think slowly let go, but make it more quicker than some people don't. And faith. Have faith in your children to know that they're going to do the right thing and not try and kick you off the farm and still involve you. And I think it's both.
Is part of that financial education important? Because for a lot of people, their children are their superannuation fund because they're coming back and they're running the property. And for a lot of people, this is also it is their only source of livelihood in their older age. So is handing over that, you've got this financial literacy that you came to the farm with, but you developed over time. Is handing that over is easier, or is it harder than handing over the actual farming bit of the farm?
No, I would like to hand the financial over to Anika, but it's going to be gradual because they've got to learn it. But I think it's up to them. I don't want to be doing it forever, and I don't think I need to be doing it forever. It's going to be their business. But we haven't got a problem that Todd and Nick are taking this farm over and supporting Keith and I. And I just think that's up to every individual farmer how they do that.
And do you think that, handing over the books or the running of the financial side of the property is just as important as, say, handing over the production side of the company?
I do, yeah, definitely. When the time comes, I think there is a time that the older person cannot keep control of the bookwork, and it should be open in relationships that if they want to come and have a look at the books or someone want to come, it's open there, anyone can have a look at it.
And does that help, the fact that you have been open with the books with Todd, and I don't know if you're open with the books with everybody, but certainly with Todd, that they know what's going on. So when eventually, and hopefully Anika takes over the books in time, that there's no surprises, or it's just, okay, you know what's here.
That's right. No, the books is between the family.
Yep.
I don't dispute anywhere else in the district or what our finances are. So, no, there's no secrets in the bookwork. Yeah. And we've got a very good accountant and consultant.
Yeah. And again, with your consultant, so you're obviously really up to date with the books and you know how to do your cash flows and your budgets and stuff. So, is that relationship with the consultant built up over time as well, do you find?
Yeah, very much so. And the accountant, we've got a very good accountant and a consultant, and they know all our business, farming, finances.
Yeah.
Very, very good. We talk regularly to both of them.
And is your role within that, yours and Keith's role within that, you've got essentially all these people that work around your business. So you have your farm advisor, who is a business advisor in more cases. So I don't know how you.
It's more a financial advisor, not a farm advisor.
Yeah.
He's a consultant, as in finances.
Yeah, and then you've got your accountant, who is more your strategic tax and wealth management and those sorts of things.
That's correct.
And then you've obviously got a banker or a bank who you hope funds what you need.
Yeah, that's through the consultant.
Yep.
So we probably see our bank manager once a year if we're lucky. Do a budget. Our consultant hands it to the bank manager, and that's the last we hear, really.
So you're the conductor of this orchestra. So you.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No. We've just got good people around us.
And do you think that? I mean, you and Keith have been successful. Do you think having good people around you is part of that success?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so who do you think, so going forward for Todd and Anika, is that something you'd recommend for them, making sure, that they make sure they have that good advice around them when they're, because they're obviously going to go and do new things and other things. And
I think I don't have to tell them. I think they know.
Yeah.
And they know that we've got a good consultant, or Todd talks to him mostly.
Yeah.
And a good accountant.
Is that part of that succession thing? Like, handing over those relationships. So those relationships started with you and Keith, those relationships with the accountant and the consultant in particular, is, that's another form of handing over, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I hope that they would keep, I think there wouldn't be a problem with the consultant, the accountant. I'm hoping they'll keep the accountant. I can't see a problem.
Yeah.
But if they want to change and they're doing the bookwork, it's up to them. I'm not going to stop them.
Yeah.
Or Keith and I aren't going to stop them.
So they obviously understand the value of having that advice around them, but it's up to them of who they get advice from, yeah?
That's right, yeah. I can't see them changing though, because the people we've had in place, the consultant and accountant, are very important to our business, and they know our business.
Yeah. So do you have a rhythm with those? So I'd like to talk about rhythm. So everyone likes to talk, in agriculture we often talk about all the big set pieces. Oh no, I've got to do this and I've got to do a BAS and a budget. I'd love to get down to the nitty gritty a bit, like rhythm. So do you have a particular habit or rhythm? Like, if I came in and I saw the way you did your books and your budgets and your everything, do you have a particular rhythm you like to maintain?
No. Well, budget is done by the consultant.
Yeah.
So rhythm, I like to pay bills very, very regularly. And then I like to enter at least once a week into AgriMaster. So when it comes to BAS, I've got to pay wages monthly. So I know at the end of the month I print it out. So within 3 or 4 days I'll pay, the PAGY tax and the same as the BAS. I'll have my BAS organised in 3 months at the end of that 3 months. So mainly I just spend time in the office. I should be probably spending more time in my office, but I like to keep on, especially paying wages. Well, pages, I have to pay wages, invoices, and keeping up with the BAS. I like to do that very, very regularly.
Yeah. And do you have a budget review cycle with your consultant as well? Like, do you?
No.
You do it once a year for I assume financing at the beginning of the year with the bank. But do you review that very often?
Not unless things change within the business that we want to buy another equipment or something's drastically happened. Very rarely.
So if, let's say, you got to, May, and you say, okay, I think we need to buy another, seating bar or something like that, you might. I'm not trying to precursor or anything, but I used to be a young farmer and I used to want to buy everything. Then you might review the budget because you've got HP to put through it and look at the cash flow.
We'd look at the cash flow. Todd would come and look at the cash flow first and ask, and then we might not even put it past the consultant. We might just do it itself. But good luck buying a bit of machinery in May because you won't get it until May 2 years later.
I know. It's always when people are listening to this, they can't see the smile on your face. I think trying to get machinery at all at the moment is...
You can't get machinery at all.
Unless you've got a magic genie or...
No, you can't even have a magic genie. It's 18 to 2 years for any vehicle, any piece of machinery, anything now.
Yeah, it's unusual how times change, isn't it? Sometimes there's gluts, and sometimes now I think even local dealers have quotas of how many bits of equipment they can actually bring into the country at all, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. We can't buy a Land Cruiser wagon now. They're not making them anymore.
Yeah.
So I think going forward that people just have to be more organised. You can't just spur of the moment buy a piece of machinery now.
So this comes down to, this is something you probably do either with the three of you or with your consultant, but that strategic planning, now we're talking, the farm's bigger, the feedlot business is bigger, and you've got bigger set pieces, the high or the chattel mortgages and those things. Do you think you require a much more a further planning ahead now, like things like machinery replacement? You're having to think end of 23 or... Yeah,
Todd is. He's talking now, if he wants another header, he'll have to think about putting it in now for, 2 years' time. So, yes, they have to definitely be more organised, especially buying machinery.
So you're doing things like machinery so with your advisor, you're doing things like machinery replacement schedules now, and is Todd or you and Keith doing things like that?
Todd talks about it.
Yeah.
We actually haven't written it on a bit of paper, and Todd's talking all the time, thinking about what he wants, and machinery. Farms are getting bigger. Our farm is getting bigger when we first started. So, he wants 2 of everything. He wants, 2 bits of machinery, two tractors, 2 air seeders, 2 track headers, and, to make life easier. So he would be thinking of those things, yes.
And you would have seen the district change so much. I mean, you're talking about now, like yourself, we go out to clients. And it's not one of anything anymore. It's 2 or more of everything, isn't it? So it's quite a logistical exercise. Like we've been touring around your operation today. Just the logistics in a farm operation these days is phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Keith added up the other day. We've only got 12 farmers in our district now, and I reckon that we would have had 30 in the 80s. And just for succession planning or people have left. And farmers have bought themselves, farmers have bought neighbours out and everything. So they have to get bigger to get the crop in earlier. There's big operations out there now, very big operations.
Yeah. So, so we're talking about people moving tens of thousands of tonnes off properties now. And it's and you think of that, it's like, it's a really big, staff and trucking and,
good luck getting staff.
Well, that's another issue. So staff. So what do you think the future is there? Like you and everybody, I think, let's say every business in Australia, I don't know where all the people have gone. I know COVID was bad, but we didn't lose that many people in the world. But people are rare as hen's teeth.
Correct, yeah.
So what do you think, if this continues, what do you think? Do you think this is going to change the nature of farming, or, are you starting to have chats around the kitchen table about what if we can't get labour going forward, or?
No, we haven't had, but we've had our issues. I think everyone's had an issue of farming. It hasn't helped with the mining. A lot of people in WA would probably disagree with me, but mining has not helped us with employment. Truck drivers, it's not only us, it's trucking companies shifting grain or anywhere, even in Perth. All the truck drivers have gone to Perth. Train drivers for CBH haven't had trouble with train drivers. They've gone up to mining industry. Yeah. So it's the big dollars, and it's not the dollars. I think farmers would pay the dollars, but it's just lifestyle, and you can't get people. If the gentleman wants to, or the person wants to come out here, their partner doesn't want to be out here.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, David.
Do you think that might increase so it's something about, as a business planning forward, not just yourselves, but all the other farmers around Australia having to plan forward. So you're saying, okay, in order to attract really good workmen, we're going to have to attract their families. So that comes down to housing, schooling, community. It's not a lot of things you can control as a farm, is it?
No, it's not. And I don't think we can control as a community. I know a trucking company in Lake Grace. He can't get drivers to live in Lake Grace now, so they actually do their operations from Perth.
So do you think
and he's not the only one. There's hundreds of trucking companies. They're all based in Perth now, and their drivers and their wives and their children in Perth. So instead of being in a town and driving to Perth to get fertiliser or grain and then coming back, they're doing it the opposite way, and I don't think we're going to change that.
So even local trucking businesses that used to be in the local towns around Australia are more likely probably to move to those large urban centres.
They have.
That's where the staff want to live.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
getting back to your question, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the community, the housing, the schooling. It's just not going to happen.
Do you think farming, does it cross your mind, or what your other farmers in the district, that farming might end more like mining? We're talking about, all these people are running off to the mines, and I think Queensland farmers might have the same issues. Is that, you might have to drive in or fly in, or drive in, drive out staff, in the future?
We I can't answer that, sorry, but with our we've got a couple of feedlot that feed the cattle. So they do 10 days and 4 days off.
Yeah.
So that they overlap. So they get 4 days, and they're quite happy with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what.
Yeah, so it's a lot more like a mining swing now. So you might get employment patterns on the farm that are a lot more like a mining swing. You know, you get these 2 on 2 off or 10 on 4 off sort of.
I don't know if we go down that track 10, only 10 days, but not 2 weeks off and 1 week on because, with seeding and harvest and things,
that's hard, yeah.
You can't have that. I don't know the answer. I really don't know the answer. If you can find staff and everyone else in business in Australia can find staff, I think good luck.
Yeah, I think it's a universal problem. I think, we've got so obviously we live in Perth now, and even cafes are closing down because they can't get staff to, their businesses are fine, they just can't get staff to work in them. So it's a universal problem, I think, Jill. So, but do you think that so when you're doing your budgeting and things as a farm, is it something now that you've got to have that cost base increase, that salary cost base?
Our salary is huge. We've got 5 staff, and it's definitely huge, and we probably want more than 5 staff. But over the last 5 years, it's tripled probably.
Yeah, and so when you're doing the budget in 23, 24 with your advisor and the family, is it one of the things like the cost of machinery, the cost of staff, the cost of fuel, fertilizer, those things? So you get, this has that changed the way you budget or the way you plan? Because the cost base is really ratcheting up in business right now, isn't it?
No, it hasn't changed the way we budget.
Yeah,
because that's always been there. So you just got to put more in it and then work out, hopefully get good seasons.
Yeah. So. Do you run more than one strategy? Like, so running into it, no, you supply a lot of your own grain to your feedlot, so you're not as exposed to the export market as maybe.
No, but we put a cost on that.
Yeah.
We still work out our margins, so we know the cost of the grain.
Yep.
So we put a cost of that to feed the cattle.
Yep. So even though you're growing your own grain for your cattle feedlot, you are costing the margins on that grain business to make sure you're running a good grain business at.
We make sure the cattle feedlot is making a profit.
Yeah, you're not cross-subsidising it with grain essentially.
No, it goes in as a cost for what if we could sell it. So we know the cost of that grain going down the cow's throat. So we know that we have to make a profit for the cows to feed the cows, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it.
So in your time in business since 88, so what are your, if I had to write down your big lessons that you've learned, what do you think they are, Jill? So what are your big bits of Jill wisdom?
Oh, I don't know, David. You got me there. I'd have to think about it.
What would you
I don't reckon there'd be any big wisdoms.
What about the little wisdoms? What are the things that really matter
in life?
Yeah,
I think happiness and having a good family relationship. Keith and I have got a wonderful relationship. We've worked hard together, and we've always, bounced off each other. And I think a family relationship is one of the best things that you could possibly have, especially in farming. There's so many sad stories in farming businesses.
And do you think? So, and that comes down to it. So you have to choose between, we've seen stories, not just in farming, but all businesses, people who preference business over family. Do you think that the strength of your business is because of the strength of your family?
Definitely. You've got to have a good family working relationship.
Yeah. So then, in farming in particular, so what, you can see it in your eyes, you love farming. What is it that makes you love farming so much, Jill?
I don't know, but I love it. I really do love it. I love getting out there, helping Todd or helping Keith, or just seeing out, the air, breathing the air. I love getting out working.
Yeah. You don't seem to be one that sits around all day.
No, sometimes I should do, especially my house, but I just love it, I'm sorry, I can't put an answer to it, but
no, that's good.
I love farming.
You do.
And I love our family farming business.
Yeah, and well, you can see how much pride you have in it, and you can see that. Look, you and Keith and Todd, you can see you work hard. Oh, we've been around today, and I think your operation. I think we said it's a 365 day of the year business, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Like the cows need to have Christmas dinner too.
That's correct. Yeah. And unfortunately, Todd's the one that's got to feed Christmas mornings every day, every year so far. But we might have someone this year, hopefully, so he can spend it with his wife and Nika and the two little boys. But Nika's been very good coming into our family.
Yeah.
She wants to be involved, and she's hardworking too. She's often got on the tractor or on the header or on the chaser bin. And then that's really good because I have my two little grandchildren, two little boys. I look after them. So it's either I'm on it and I say, no, you get on it and I'll look after my grandboys.
So for those of you, because obviously you can't see, but behind me on Jill's kitchen bench, we've got spoiling grandchildren. It's my job. So you obviously love spoiling your grandchildren.
Yeah, and I do. We're very lucky to have two healthy little grandboys.
So you've obviously got a really good relationship with your daughter-in-law, and you got magic there?
No.
You're just a nice person.
No. Just involve them and let them.
But that's a good. But even today, our whole chat, involve people. And I think, for all the business stuff we've talked about, that seems to be a recurring theme with you. Get people involved, make sure they're part of it. And do you think
relationships, communication, and involvement?
As always, if you'd like to know more about AgriMaster farm business management software and services, you can find us at www.agrimaster.com.au or find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. If you like this episode, please share it on social media or directly with a friend, and let's make farm business great together.